Bam! With that piece of music. Wow, what a piece of music that is as well. I was only going to let that run for about 45 seconds, but, once you get into it, once you dance around the room in your underpants, remembering how great it felt the first time you saw the DeLorean hit 88, I had to just let it run. So I hope you don't mind the extended play there of the Back to the Future theme. That's Alan Silvestri. It's not our copyright, and I'll probably get shot for it, but hey, I'm celebrating Back to the Future because I fell in the toilet this week, banged my head, and ever since then I've been Back to the Future mad. I've watched the Back to the Future films on Blu-ray, I've played the Back to the Future games, but I'll tell you more about that after this Bagpuss introduction. That introduces the show. Who knows? Anyway, enjoy that. This is from the past, and we're bringing it into the future with a little bit of a twist. You've heard it before, you know what it is, but everybody loves it. It's the Bagpuss intro. See you on the other side.
Once upon a time, not so long ago, there was a little girl, and her name was Emily. And she read a blog. There it is. It was rather a usual blog because it didn't write anything. You see, everything in that blog's page was a link that somebody had once posted and Emily had found and mailed on to Bouncy. Emily's cat, Bouncy. The most important, the most beautiful, the most magical, saggy old internet troll in the whole wide world. Well now, one day Emily found a link, and she brought it back to the blog, and she mailed it to Bouncy, who was asleep in his pants as usual. But then Emily said some magic words. Bouncy, dear Bouncy, old fat furry noncy, wake up and look at this link that I bring. Wake up, be bright, spout venom and shite. Bouncy, oh hear what I sing.
Yeah, hello everybody. Yes, it is Wednesday the 9th of May. It is just a little past 9 o'clock, and if you hadn't heard already, it is the Back to the Future inspired episode of the Holocaust, full of confidence and positivity, and it's all thanks to you and your lovely feedback I had last week after the previous two shows. I asked you what you thought of the show. We got a very clear response that generally what you want is you want us to carry on what we're doing and just be a bit confident because you enjoy it. So thanks for that. I mean, that has made, it sounds daft, but it has made a huge difference. So anyway, Back to the Future. Yeah, so this week I genuinely slipped over in my bathroom. It was kind of my own fault. I invented a new way of getting out of the bath this week. It's new to me anyway. I know other people may have done this, but basically what I did is I couldn't be bothered to stand up and then step out because I've been having trouble with circulation in my legs. So what I did is I turned in the bath, hooked my legs onto the outside, pulled myself up onto the edge of the bath, and then just stood up. And it was like, basically, then getting out of a chair. It was the easiest, less stressful way of getting out of the bath I've ever come up with. It was all going brilliantly until the day I forgot to put a bath mat down, hopped out of the bath, slipped, smacked my head on the toilet. And at that point, as I lay there with mild concussion, I thought, actually, this is exactly how Emmett Brown got his inspiration. Hopefully, I'll find some sort of inspiration. Then came downstairs, and I watched Back to the Future on Blu-ray. Then I watched Back to the Future Part 2 on Blu-ray. Then I watched Back to the Future Part 3 on Blu-ray. Then I watched the extras on the Blu-ray. Then I played the GameCube Universal Tours game on the GameCube so I could do the Back to the Future bit. And then I realised I'd downloaded the whole of the episodic games from Telltale onto the PlayStation 3 as part of my PlayStation Plus membership, and I never actually played them past the first episode. So I went back and played through all of those in a couple of episodes, a couple of days. I love Back to the Future. I think everybody has a soft spot for Back to the Future. It's one of those films that, because it's of its age, but it hasn't dated. It is a period movie now, if you look back at it. At the time, it was, the 50s bit was a period bit. Now, the 80s bit is as kind of period for us as it was. And scarily, we're almost 30 years ahead of 1985 in which the movie was set. And obviously, that's the 2015 The Back to the Future 2 possible timeline in which we're supposed to have great big holographic cinemas and flying cars and hoverboards. And it's boring on the internet where people say, oh, come on, science, you've only got 3 years to make Back to the Future 2 happen. Of course, that's not going to happen. But it would be pretty cool if we got somewhere near. I did read on the internet this week that a scientist has actually managed to make a sonic screwdriver that can manipulate an object in water using sonic impulse waves or something. You can make it lift up and down and turn around, and that's pretty amazing. That technology that was kind of science fiction from 1960s is now possible. And, of course, everything is possible eventually, with the exception of Conservative Party transparency. So, there you go. So playing through the Back to the Future films and games, I started thinking, actually, technology is a wonderful thing. And with the games, in particular, I was thinking back to when I had the Master System as a child and playing the Back to the Future, I think it was part 2. It was either part 2 or part 3 on the Master System. It was rock hard. And I mean, I probably only ever played 5 minutes of the game in terms of the story, but I played those same 5 minutes over and over and over again, convinced one day I'd get past the stage. The actual details of it elude me. It was something like a hoverboard chase or something like that. And it was really, really, really hard. And I never got past it, but it didn't stop me trying. And the reason was, I loved the film so much, I just wanted to be part of that world somewhat. And it really didn't feel anything like a Back to the Future game. So much as any game in the 80s that was a licensed product really resembled much of what it was licensed for. It didn't stop the games being, in some respects, great. Master System Ghostbusters, for example, actually did a great job of making a Ghostbusters game that didn't resemble much of the kind of license, but it was a great game that did put you in the role of being a Ghostbuster, even if you could put a Hoover on top of your car and drive around. So I got thinking, and it got me onto an interesting idea that I'm now going to talk to you about after I play this little intro here for the Gamescast. So do go give us a little listen, and I'll talk to you after the break.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you some important news from the world of live chat shows. What to talk about video games?
Chat show? Isn't it more of a podcast? It's not Jonathan Ross.
You may not realise it, but you have missed the most awesome source show, What Talks About Video Games.
Seriously, is awesome source even a word?
Every Tuesday night at 9 PM, the Gamescast presents its unique blend of news and rants live via Spreaker.com, packed into 45 minutes of goodness.
This is starting to sound like a coffee advert.
We now return you to the Holocaust, because we mad too.
Yeah, so as I said, I got thinking about technology and how amazing some of the technology of 2015 seemed to Marty from 1985. And actually, some of the technology of 2012 is in some ways more impressive than the kind of purported future technology of the film trilogy. What I found most interesting is how complacent we are in regards to this technology. So, for example, if we just take the major 3 last gaming kind of innovations, you've got motion gaming, in particular Kinect hands-free motion gaming. You've got the PlayStation Vita with all touchscreens and augmented reality and what have you. And you've got the 3DS with kind of glasses-free 3D technology. All of which, as a general rule, are kind of regarded as, it's a gimmick. It's, it's not as good as what we've had in the past. But if you'd have said to the 8-year-old self of me, or my 8-year-old self, if I'd have said, I invented a time machine, right? I got into a time machine, and I went back in time, and I found myself, age 8, sitting in the garden, playing with a stick, digging a hole in the ground, squirting it with a hose pipe, making the worms come out so I could play with them, like kids used to do. And I said to them, hey, little boy, what's your name? And they'd say, I don't talk to strangers. And I'll go, no, it's all right, mate. I sort of know your dad. Him and me, we know each other. I've got this I want to show you. And I whip out my 3DS. I say, look at that. And I show him, I don't know, new Super Mario 3D Land. My eyes would literally have set fire. My head would have exploded. And I don't think I'd have lasted. And yet now, people sort of look at it and go, it's just a gimmick. It's just a DS with a 3D screen on it. Yeah, it's a 3D screen that you don't need glasses for. You know, I went to Alton Towers. I had to watch a 3D movie with like kind of the red and green lenses. It was rubbish. It gave me a headache, and it was like a bloke opening legs on a tripod and spiders with light bulb eyes and things. It was all that kind of, and it was a gimmick, but it still worked. And what we've got now works better than ever. So on Twitter and on Facebook and everywhere else, I've been asking people what their kind of, if they were to go back, what would most blow their mind if they had to show themselves something. We've had a couple of good answers already. We've had the Kinect. It was mentioned by Stuart from the Monday Movie Show. And he says, though he's not a huge fan, obviously the concept is great. The iPod was... Obviously, a lot of people came out with the iPod. You know, in terms of anything, you know, he said if he'd shown himself the iPod, he would have gone out that day and broken his Sony Walkman, and then just cried that he had to still use tapes. It would be years before he could have MP3s. And my postman, who I cornered this morning in fear of having no responses, said if he'd have seen Avatar in a 3D that he saw it at as an early child, his head fully would have melted. My mum, because obviously, let's be honest, you know, our parents have been through more technological changes than we have. She said Sky Plus and being able to set TV from her iPod and iPad and things, it still impresses her. But she also remembers the days of the first digital watches and how amazing that was. So yeah, that's thanks, Mum. Woo! And and Father Phil from the Gamescast, he said that multiplayer without a keyboard, with two people on a keyboard, you know, in the days where A and Z used to be up and down instead of, you know, W and S and stuff like that. So yeah, the days where you'd have to kind of map out the keys and share them unless you had two joysticks, or let's be honest, some early computers only had one joystick slot, so you had to get the expansion and everything else. So yeah, even just multiplayer. Now, where are we now? Yeah, you can play multiplayer across the distance. So there, if it's like Dalek, Sex and I were trying to play Trials Evolutions multiplayer, and I use that loosely in the mode that we were in, which essentially just put us on the same map, but not at the same time. It was pretty much a single player. Wasn't very competitive. It's not so much fun when you're playing against a live version. There is another multiplayer mode that's probably better, and it didn't work too great. And the voice chat kept breaking down. So in some respects, you know, it's not quite at its peak that when one of the best games in around can't get the multiplayer quite right. But still, you know, why is it that we're so complacent about technology that is actually changing our lives and making it so much easier? Is it because we hit a point where actually every piece of technology made something that little bit easier, but it was only something that was already being made easier? So like smartphone technology is something that's constantly evolved from the times of having PDAs and pagers and early mobile phones and things. It wasn't like we had nothing and then we had a smartphone. The same with consoles. You know, we've gone from the early days of kind of 8-bit computing up to where we are now. But because it's been a rapid kind of climb towards that, I think in some respects we've lost respect for where we are. Which it's not a bad thing as such, but I think sometimes it's nice just to step back and think, you know, actually we're quite privileged and quite lucky to have the technology that we have. So yeah, that's, you know, it's just a bit. So what do you think? You know, jump onto Twitter, message me at BouncyBall, or leave a comment on our Spreaker site, or our website at lolacourse.co.uk. There is a piece article on there that you can comment on. So anyway, next coming up is our venerable colleague, Mr. Sex, Dalek Sex, who, after last week sitting in the kitchen with a saucepan, has been relegated to the cupboard under the stairs to eliminate a rogue spider that ran in there last week. You know, I figured he's the best person as ever. And special mention has got to go to Davey Wentzler, creator of one of the apps that he's going to talk about. Genuinely, we really cannot stress how impressed we are with his software. And I'll let you listen to Dalek now. So remember, he hasn't got a saucepan. This time he's talking into a teacup. So I'll pass you over to Dalek.
We're the Holocaust, and this is the voice of sex.
Yeah. Huh. Come on. He's got opinion, a posted suggestion, but never reveals his name. Read by someone, taken as a good one, but nobody knows who wrote it. Few lies with a sentence lie, anonymity.
This week, I am resolved to focus on the positive. which involves getting drunk and talking about anything other than how good the Avengers movie wasn't. I'm already drunk, so all that remains is me to present my top 6 Android applications of pure sex. Because 6 rhymes with sex. It's a bit shit, but that's what I have, and that's what I'm going with. First up is Audio Evolution. This is a sound mixer which allows you to record and edit sound samples and overlay imported music in a multi-track environment. If you're the sort of person who can see themselves marooned miles from anywhere but still needs to record a podcast, then this is for you. The size of your device's screen is obviously a limitation, but for a handheld alternative to Audacity, it is amazingly good. I've been prepared to put my money where my mouth is by recording this week's Voice of Sex using nothing but Audio Evolution and my Android phone. It costs around £4, which is an amazing price for a professional quality sound studio, and its developer, Davey Wensler, answers tech support questions with such speed and enthusiasm you would think that the F5 key is his only friend. Secondly, and because I couldn't get away with not including a game on this list, Where's My Water? It's a simple physics puzzle in the style of Cut the Rope, which entails directing water in a broken plumbing system so that a friendly crocodile can have a bath. It's already a strong game, but the real star of the show is the graphics. It simply has the best I've ever seen in a mobile phone game. Disney did the animation and character design, and it shows to the point where you'll leave the game running after the completion of a level, just to listen to the main character splash around and make happy little crocodile noises with a rubber duck. Adorable. Melted my black little heart. Next on the list is FPSE, an emulator which allows you to play PlayStation 1 ISOs from your SD card. I cannot overemphasize the extent to which this app drops people's jaws when they see you playing Metal Gear Solid or Final Fantasy VIII during your fag break. Obviously analog control is a problem, but if you root your device you can pair it with a 6-axis controller and inflict some serious sex on the flapping mushes of your terrified co-workers. My fourth recommendation is Android VNC. If you've never heard of VNC, then you're probably a computer spasmo, and if you're a computer spasmo, you may have needed a tech support creature to take control of your mouse pointer to do important things, such as turning off Vista's graphical effects and removing Norton antivirus, so that it can be disarmed and quarantined in WizBeach, where it will harm relatively few. Speaking simple-like, Android VNC allows you to take remote control of a computer using your phone's touchscreen as an input device. If you can get in while a friend or co-worker's back is turned and allow it access, you can cock with their head all day. I read one story about a guy with a boss who was a fundamentalist Christian, and she ran from the building because she thought God was talking to her through her PC. The possibilities stretch out into the distance like Southend Pier. Number 5 is Go Launcher EX, an alternative desktop for your Android device. I've mentioned before on the Holocaust that one of the best things about open source software is that somebody always wants to do it better, and Go Launcher is the best. Once you've ripped out HTC Sense or whatever bollocks came pre-installed on your device, you'll be treated to a fantastic user interface, a calendar widget which leaves all the others standing, and an integrated task manager with screen transition effects so swish that an iPhone user once commented to me, "My phone couldn't do something like that." For the record, I was running it on a wildfire. A wildfire. Finally, and my personal favourite, Terminal Emulator. Everyone who matters knows that Android is built on Linux, and Terminal Emulator allows you to use it to interact directly with your device. Without a rooted phone, it's a geek toy. With a rooted phone, you can place Ubuntu.sh on your SD card, request super user, and run it as a script. VNC to localhost, and you have an Ubuntu running over the top of an Android. Add a Bluetooth keyboard, and you have a fully functional internet-ready desktop PC in the palm of your hand. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is sex. Well, that's it for my favourite Android apps. In case you're wondering, my Bluetooth keyboard costs £6 from 7 Days Shop on Amazon, and it has rubber keys, just like a 48K Spectrum. Be warned, though, that there are pairing issues with 2.1. Next week, I'll be talking about Sniper Elite, a game which seems to have been designed and developed solely for me. It's alright though, I'll let you play it too, but only if you are nice. Rooting an Android device is a specialist procedure. The law, of course, takes no responsibility for you bricking your Galaxy Note with your stupid fat fingers.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you some important news from the world of live chat shows. Want to talk about video games?
Chat show? Isn't it more of a podcast? It's not Jonathan Ross.
You may not realise it, but you have missed the most awesome source show, What Talks About Video Games.
Seriously, is awesome sauce even a word?
Every Tuesday night at 9 PM, the Gamescast presents its unique blend of news and rants live via Spreaker.com, packed into 45 minutes of goodness.
This is starting to sound like a coffee advert.
We now return you to the Holocaust, because we mad too.
Yes, so there you go. That was Dalek Sex talking from the cupboard under the stairs there, and yeah, some very interesting things for owners of Android devices. Anyway, now a new little bit. We keep getting asked about why we don't do so many kind of funny news stories on the site anymore, so we figured we'd just do one on the show. So here we go, some overblown news music. Hello, I'm Bouncy Ball, and here's the news for Wednesday, the 9th of May. Police say cheesecake is a potential lethal weapon. A van driver has been ordered to fork out £600 after being spotted on police camera swerving between lanes on a Yorkshire motorway as he ate a cheesecake behind the wheel. John Barton, 54, was seen weaving from lane to lane on a link road between the M1 and M18 last September. Police claimed he had both hands off the wheel and was steering with his elbows as he munched on the cheesecake. Barton from Todwick near Rotherham pleaded not guilty, but he was found guilty of failing to have proper control of his vehicle and fined £200 plus £400 in costs. After the case, Mr. Barton still denied eating the cheesecake, but said he'd had a small marshmallow and had not taken both hands off the wheel. He claimed the reason the van was swerving was due to gale force winds that day. I was weaving, but not because of having my hands off the steering wheel. I just wouldn't do that, he said. The police officer who stopped me said he was actually saw me eating, but he didn't. He also said I sniggered. I didn't. It was the guy sat next to me. I feel it was all an injustice. I was eating, but not a cheesecake. It was a little marshmallow which I took from the dashboard in just a few seconds. My argument is that if people with cigarettes hold them with one hand on the steering wheel, and all I did was take a chocolate tea cake or whatever off a dashboard. Chief Inspector Stuart Wayne of South Yorkshire Police said, "This is the same sort of case as a mobile phone. When you're behind the wheel, it's potentially a lethal weapon. You have to be in proper control or you risk injuries to others and yourself. It's one thing eating a biscuit or sandwich, which I'm not saying is right, but you can still change gear and hold the wheel. To eat a cheesecake is just ludicrous." So there you go. That's the news that a man eating a cheesecake was a potential hazard on the motorway. Our next story is Australian supermarkets may have to ban sales of grapes because of increase in personal injury claims. Grapes could be banned from Australian supermarkets or sold in sealed bags to prevent accidents, as shoppers claim more than $100 million a year in personal injury payouts after slipping in the aisles. At least one grocery outlet has more than $50 million worth of claims on its books, up 300% from 2004. Personal injury lawyers say the number of injured shoppers taking action is rising, with malfunctioning trolleys, loose rice grains, and rogue grapes driving claims. The costly trend has forced supermarkets to erect warning signs, invest in anti-slip mats, and explore new ways of storing foods. Grapes pose the biggest hazard, but other problem foods include lettuce leaves, snow peas, beans, and milk. And I've said this numerous times before. If you're clumsy, it's your own fault. If you slip over, you should be watching where you're walking. Obviously, there's a difference. If some prat has chucked a load of grapes all over the floor, and you run at it and do that slidey thing with a trolley and put your feet down, it doesn't quite work, then obviously that's kind of still your fault. But, yeah. Anyway, that's So that's the news bit. We'll be doing that every week. I was only going to do the cheesecake one, but I think if we had time to put in the grapes one, because it's ridiculous. There was also a Russian guy, I won't go into the full story, but he was walking through the park when a local archery club was practicing in a nearby facility, and a rogue arrow went over their boundary wall and went straight through his neck. And he then picked up his mobile phone while impaled with an arrow that was, let me just check the details, 20 inches long. He rang his wife to tell her what happened, who then called an ambulance, and they rushed him to hospital and successfully saved his life. That's proper hard, that, isn't it, eh? Shot through the neck with an arrow. The first thing he does is gets on the phone to his wife to tell her. It's like, yes, I was shot with arrow, but I am not worried. So, yeah, slightly kind of insulting voices aside, that was, very funny. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the show. There is a competition, if I can get it out quick enough. The competition is, get onto Twitter @BouncyBall and just tweet me the words Back to the Future, and you can put yourself into a draw to win your own little tiny Hot Wheels DeLorean, which is pretty awesome. So remember, that's @BouncyBall on Twitter. Goodbye!
Bouncy gave a big yawn and settled down to sleep. And of course, when Bouncy goes to sleep, all his friends go to sleep too. Nerf Derma and Scarred Star were just a pair of old bad trolls. Dalek Sex went back to playing with his organ, and even Bouncy himself was just an old cloth twat, baggy and a bit loose at the seams. But Emily loved him.